Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Middleware Technologies. Today we'll be looking at how we can enable and validate CORS in nginx server. Okay, so here in this video, we will try to simulate example wherein we will try to load a website with content from another domain, which is basically called a cross domain, and we will try to see what type of errors we will get in the browser if we try to access a domain which is not ours. Okay, so before going into the details of how we can implement that in the nginx server, let us try to understand what is CORS first. Okay, so let us go into our browser and try to search for CORS. Okay, so it will take you to the Mozilla documentation, and let us try to open this article related on CORS. Okay, so let us try to understand this image. Okay, so basically what exactly is a website? Okay, so website is something that we build in our browser by requesting some domain, and that request basically goes to a server. So here in this case, let's say in our web server, in our browser, we are trying to load a domain a.com. So it tries to access this server and try to load the resources from this server. Okay, so that is basically the domain which we are the owner of. Okay, so basically we own that domain and we are trying to access that domain and try to load the resources from that. Okay, but in order to basically if you go through the web application development or HTML or CSS development, so in order to build a website, there are multiple other resources that we use. Okay, so we use javascripts, we use CSS files, we use fonts, and all these resources are basically most of the time are from another domain. Okay, so they are not inbuilt in your organization or in your domain. Okay, you try to access the CSS style sheets, you try to access the JavaScripts APIs, and you try to access the fonts, images, videos, some all this maybe from another domain. Okay, so that is where the cross domain request or resource sharing comes into picture. So when you try to access those resources from a cross domain, that's where the CORS comes into picture. Okay, CORS, cross origin resource sharing. Okay, and in browsers, if we are accessing any resources using XML HTTP request, that is, we are trying to access a cross domain using XML HTTP request or fetch API, they are by default blocked, because browsers are secured or built in such a way that they allow you to access only the same origin request. Okay, so that is what basically CORS is. So in order for your browser or your domain, that is your primary domain, to access the another domain, that is domain B, the cross domain, the other domain need to allow for cross origin request. Okay, so basically if domain B allows domain A to access its resources, the browser will be able to load it. Okay, but how the browser is going to know whether the domain B is allowing the resources to be loaded or not? Okay, so it is based on the headers which are set in the domain B resource response. Okay, so whenever we are going to request for domain B, in its response it will send some headers which basically tell the browser that it allows to load the resources from any domain or a specific domain. Okay, so based on that the browser is able to load those resources from that specific domain. Okay, so that is in short like what is CORS and how it comes into picture when we access our the resources in our web browser. Okay, so in our example, like we will be trying to simulate the same image, like same example, but in this case, like our domain A, that is domain A, the primary domain, let's say it is listening on port 3000. Okay, so we will first request for one page, that is HTML page. Okay, that is a static page, and once that page loads, we will click a button in that page, which is basically going to be a request to a different context. Okay, a different context on a different domain. Okay, so that domain is going to be this domain B, which listens on port 80, and from there, like we will be trying to load a like proxypass based backend application response, that is flask based application. Okay, so we are going to simulate both of these servers, like both of these domains, that is our primary domain and the cross domain, in the same nginx server. Okay, so let us jump into our article. So I am on Fedora 37 workstation with nginx 1.22.1 installed, and let us try to see how we can implement this in a nginx server. Okay, so as a first step, like we need to ensure that the nginx service is installed and it is running. Okay, so let me go into my shell, and here you can do sudo dnf install nginx if you do not have nginx already installed. Okay, so in my case, like I have nginx already installed, so I'm good with that one. And let us try to check the status of this nginx service. So it is now right now it is not running, so we can start it. So in your case, you can start it directly if you are installing it for the first time, and you can then check the status as like this. Okay, so now like our nginx service is up and running. Okay, so we have our first step completed, that is our nginx server is up and running. Let us go into our next step, that is we are going to like implement a backend application, which is a flask based application. Okay, so let me go into my shell and let me show you my backend application, that is a flask based application. So it is a very simple application which can be accessed using the post request on post JSON context and get request on the get JSON context. Okay, and in this example, like we are going to use the get JSON in order to simulate the CORS example. Okay, so let me try to start up this service. So we can start up this flask application using the following command, wherein we are passing the app name, that is backend, and run that on a particular host. Like basically it binds to that host and the port 2021. Okay, so let us run it. So it is started and up and running, and we can validate our get request using the following curl. So wherein we are trying to use a get request to access the get.json context, which basically sends a hello flask message. Okay, so this is our very basic flask application that is now up and running. Okay, now let us come to our step 3, that is the important step, which is updating the nginx configuration. Okay, so as I said, like we are going to simulate two domains in our nginx server itself. Okay, so one is the primary domain and the other one is the cross domain. Okay, so let me go into my nginx configuration. So when you install nginx, by default the nginx main configuration file is present at etc nginx location. Okay, so here let us try to open that file. So the default nginx file comes as like this. So this is the port 80 on which it listens server. So I have commented this one, and this is the TLS example, and this one also I have commented. Basically it might be commented already, but yeah, so these two server server sections I have commented. So there is no server section right now that comes with nginx installed, like default server section has been commented, and I am going to create like I have created these two server sections. Okay, so these as I said, like these are our primary and the cross domain. Okay, so let me tell you about the primary domain. So this is my primary domain, which listens on port 3000, and it loads the content from data www. Okay, so from here, like we are going to load very basic HTML file, which in turn, like when we click on a button, it does a cross origin request. Like basically it is a JavaScript script trigger that we are going to utilize in that HTML file, and this is going to be our cross domain, which basically listens on which basically routes on a proxy flask context. So whenever there is a request coming on the particular context, it is going to send that to the proxypass application, which is our backend application, that is flask based application. Okay, so this is very basic nginx configuration we have with two domains. Okay, so now that we have seen our nginx configuration and we have started, like if you have any done any changes, like you just need to restart the nginx service. Okay, using sudo systemctl restart nginx. So this will restart your nginx in order for you to make any config changes to take effect. Okay, now let us try to access our cross domain, that is listening on proxy flask. So basically we are sending a get request on the nginx host, that is fedserv.stack.com. so this is my domain. Okay, and on this we are sending the request to proxy flask context. So it is going to send that to the backend flask application, and that is going to send us the response, that is hello flask. Okay, so this is working as expected, so there is no issue with that one. Okay, but now let us try to see how we can enable CORS for in the nginx layer. Okay, basically we are enabling the CORS for the specific context, that is proxy flask, which actually sends the request further to the backend application. Okay, so here like what we are going to do is we are going to add the following header. Okay, but before that, let us try to see like some details about this primary domain which listens on 3000. So as I said, like I am accessing this primary domain on 3000 port, and it loads a content from data www. Okay, so let me show you the content of data www, that is CORS HTML. Okay, so let me open this. So as I said, this is a very basic HTML file which creates a button, and when we click on that button, on click, it loads that this function that is basically a JavaScript, and this function is going to do a XML HTTP request. Okay, and this XML HTTP request is going to be sent to the flask context. Okay, proxy flask context. And as you can see, like we are accessing that flask application on this particular domain. Okay, but our CORS HTML is going to be accessed on fetcher.stack.com:3000. Okay, so let us try to access this one first. Okay, so let me go into my browser and try to access my primary domain, that is fetcher.stack.com on 3000, and load our CORS test.html. So let me okay, so this is fetcher 36, so let me remove that. Okay, so as you can see, like we are able to access our HTML file, which is a CORS which is a CORS test.html file, and this button change content is going to do a XML HTTP request. Okay, so before doing that, let us try to open our web developer tools, and now let us try to click on that. So as you can see, the get request is blocked, so you can see the status is blocked, and if you go further, like you can check the errors down, click on the error split console, like you can check the errors over here. So cross origin request is blocked. Okay, so what exactly has happened over here is, so we are on domain like fetcher.stack.com listening on port 3000. So we have accessed this test HTML with this domain. Okay, but when we are trying to click on this button, it is actually sending a XML HTTP request. Okay, it is sending a XML HTTP request to basically the domain fetcher.stack.com. Okay, so these two domains are actually different domains, and that's why it is not allowing or the cross origin request. Okay, so as you can see, the same or from the error, the same origin policy disallows reading the remote resource. In our case, the remote resource or the secondary domain is the proxy flask context. Okay, and reason is CORS header access control allow origin is missing. Okay, so this header basically we need to set on this particular context, so that it tells the browser that it allows cross origin request from a specific domain. Okay, so that is what we are going to do right now with the nginx context update. Okay, so now let us go into our shell and open the nginx context. So here what we are going to do is we are going to add the following header now. Okay, but let me tell you, this header is also not going to help us, but it will show a different error that we want to look at it. Okay, so I have added a header with access control allow origin and the value as fetcher.stack.com. Okay, so let us see like how this is going to behave. So let me save this one and let us try to restart our nginx service. So nginx service is restarted, and now let us try to access this. So let me clear this one. Okay, now let us try to access this again, and our HTML page is loaded. Let us try to access this one, change content, which routes the request to that proxy flask context, but it is still not accessible. Okay, now let us try to check the error. Cross origin request is blocked. The same origin policy disallowed reading the remote resource head this fetcher.stack.com. Reason: CORS header does not match this one. Okay, so the CORS header that we set is fetcher, but it does not match with the original or the primary domain from which we are trying to access it. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to update our header with the port number. So basically, like, this is our primary domain from which we are going to access this proxy flask context. Okay, so now let us try to restart and load this page again, and now let us try to as you can see, it is still not accessible because we have just provided the port number, but we are still missing the schema. So basically we are missing the http://. Okay, so let us try to update that one also. So here, like, we need to provide actually the complete schema, the domain and the port. Okay, so HTTP is our schema, this is the domain fetcher.stack.com, and 3000 is the port on which the primary domain is listening. So let us save this file and try to restart our nginx service again. Okay, now let us try to clear up our console and try to load this XML HTML, and now let us try to trigger the change content button. Okay, now as you can see, like, we are able to access our proxy flask context, and it is able to proxy pass the request to the backend flask based application. Okay, so it basically means, like, we are able to do a cross domain cross origin resource request from our primary domain that is listening on port 3000. Okay, and you can see in the response of this proxy flask context. Okay, so it adds the following headers, that is access control allow origin. Okay, so this basically means it allows access from the particular domain with this HTTP port domain fetcher.stack.com and the port 3000. Okay, and our request headers, it will contain our origin, that is fetcher.stack.com, colon 3000. Okay, so this is how the CORS basically behaves. And like you might want to implement in your application. So basically you allow access to your resources or the backend services from only a specific domains rather than giving access to all of the domains. Okay, so that is how like you can restrict your domain resources so that it can be accessible from a specific uh, uh, domains only. Okay, so this is how like we can actually implement the CORS in nginx server. So we have seen like how we can enable the CORS with different examples of add headers. So we have seen like what happens if we do not put this header, and what happens if we put a header with only the domain name, and what type of error we get. So all those examples we have tried to cover over here. And as I said, like we have already looked at the JavaScript example in our HTML file. So this is the HTML file that I have shown you already. So it basically triggers XML HTTP request using a JavaScript. Okay, so this is what exactly is the function. And we have seen like in our last finally like we have seen what type of CORS issues we get using different headers, and then we have updated the context. So basically it should be http colon / / okay, so I think I missed that one, but yeah, so you can see from the example nginx context, so it should be http colon / / okay. So here like this is the updated nginx config, so that it allows the cross origin domain request for this proxy flask context. Okay, and we have seen like once it is allowed, like what type of headers like we get in the response. And this proxy flask context we can actually check using the curl request also, and see what type of headers are set, so which is the same as like what we have seen in the browser. Okay, so you can see in the response it has set the access control allow origin with this following header value, and so this basically means that this context or this backend service from nginx which we are going to access is going to allow us to access it from the following origin, that is basically a cross origin. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you in this video. Thank you all, thanks for watching this video, and you guys have a great day.